Hi, this is Myrna from A Quilter's Choice APQS West. Here I've got my backing. I'll throw it over my rollers. Again, the cow's heads are up. We spread this, well, I take this, put it up under my leveler bar, and I just throw it back there and start spreading it out. It's easier to deal with a piece of fabric that is nice and flat and spread out than a piece of fabric that's wadded up. Make it easier on yourself. So then I pull it out up under between my quilt top roller and my backing roller. This is really nice fabric. It feels good. So spread it out. So I put this up over my quilt top roller about 4 inches. Just like that. Now I'm going to go to the back and pull this fabric backing all the way back, because again, it's easier to deal with a flat piece of fabric and know what you have than just kind of going at it without knowing. Pull it all back. Just like this. Get it nice and flat. In my mind, this is one of the most important steps to do when you're getting ready to do a quilt. If your backing is on wrong, you're going to have issues. You're going to have tucks and pleats. Your quilt isn't going to lay properly. Right. Now I'm going to take my pin bowl. This is my Freddy and it's on the standard table, so I can still use my magnetic bowl. Then I take my quilt backing roller, release the brake, and I pull it up. I said that I lay this over about 4 inches. I put this over my roller, my my quilt top roller, so I have about 4 inches. Then I can take my quilt backing roller and just lay it right up over top of the fabric. Take your pin bowl or however you do it. I don't use leader grips and I don't use red snappers. I'm a pinner, but if you use leader grips or the red snappers, you know what to do on your thing. So I just start in the middle. I take a corsage pin. This is the way I've done this for 25 years. These are the corsage pins I like. They're the cone-shaped head, not the round ones. The round ones I don't like. They just don't do as well. So when I run into those, I just throw them away. Corsage pins. They're teardrop shaped, and you can get them on my website. I take big bites, and when I say big bites, this is what I mean. If I have a pin and I'm pinning my backing on, this is my little tester sheet, I will go in, push it through, and I keep about the same amount of the end of the pin as the head of the pin. And I usually space them about a thumb's width apart. So when I do this, I know that my next pin is going to go down right here, and it'll give me about an inch, maybe a little less, between the head of the pin and the tail of the pin. So I'm just going to go through this. Getting down to one end. You can see how it looks. They're not overlapped and they're not too far apart. I keep the edge of my quilt backing even with the edge of my canvas. I don't want any hanging over or too low. I want to keep it square and straight. When I get to the end here, you always want to make sure that you keep this little tail of your fabric pinned. If I have to overlap here, I will. And I'd have to, so Just put another pin in there. If you drop a pin, pick it up. If you don't, it's going to end up someplace you don't want it. So then I go back to the middle and start again. Just go back the other way. Fabric even. If it's wrong, take it out and redo it. It will save you so much headache in the meantime. Getting to the end. Get that corner pin down. So my entire bottom of my backing is pinned on perfectly. So then I push it down between the backing roller and the quilt top roller. It is so important to keep your canvas straightened out. Make sure it's rolled in tight to itself so it's not squishy. That's going to mess up your fabric. It's not going to wind up properly. And on the end, you want to keep your canvas. I'll go in from the center and just twist it out like this. The same thing this way. Keep your canvas straight as much as possible. Your canvas will last a lot longer. So now I'm going to start rolling it on. Another note. Don't stand here and roll your quilt with your hand on the canvas, rolling it this way. Because when you do that, you are rolling your canvas into itself. It's going to get it very distorted and out of shape very quickly. Remember when you were kids, your brother would twist your arm like this? Don't do that. Well, my brothers did it. Now I start rolling. If I have, my Freddie has automatic advance, but my Lucy doesn't, on the standard table, I don't care. I roll it the same way. So I will just keep rolling. Now with the automatic advance, I put my hand on my roller right here. I'm going to hold my knob and I'm going to push my foot pedal so the canvas, the pickup roller is rolling. That will give me slack on my backing so it makes it easier to roll without stretching the fabric. So just push my foot pedal and start rolling, not on the canvas. Just like this. And then I'll start coming down and pushing my fabric out, making sure that my sides are staying up, and I want to twist this out. Remember, even though the salvages are there, you still have 2 pieces of fabric on each side, and if I didn't tell you, press those seams open. Don't leave them all on one side. You'll have 3 pieces of fabric on one side and 1 on the other. It makes it very hard to get it nice and flat. So I will twist it out just like this, and then I'll start rolling again. I do this the entire length of the backing. Now my hand is here, but I am absolutely not rolling with this canvas. I'm rolling here. Move it out again. If there's any threads, pick them off. You're in straight, Also, you'll notice as you're rolling your fabric on, and even your quilt top, your fabric has a tendency to kind of walk in on your sides. So you're going to reach up here and straighten it out. I don't know whose brand of fabric this is, but it's really very nice. Get my break off. Now I'm going to roll it up until the piece on the back is hanging down about 10 inches. That will give me room to pin it the way I pin it on the back. So what I want to do now is push my reverse pedal, because my canvas is short, but my fabric is longer. So I'm just going to unwind the canvas a little bit till I get it to where I think I want it. Then I let my fabric relax a little bit. Put your brake on, your front brake on. Tend to this, make sure everything's nice and smooth. Now I'm at the back of the quilt, or the back of the machine. So remember, I just rolled my canvas out, so it's really bunched up under here. So I just reach underneath, get a hold of the edge of my canvas, in the center, shoulder width apart, give it a good tug. Come down, shoulder width apart, give it a good tug. And I keep doing that because my canvas is all bunched up. You want it flat. No buckles, no wrinkles, no bunches. Just pull it smooth all the way. Then I'm going to look, because I just guesstimate where my fabric is going to end up. I want it even with my canvas. So I feel this, and I've still got a couple of inches, and I can see on my canvas line, this really isn't too crooked, if it is at all. So I'm going to use my power advance switch, and I'm going to unroll it. I always hit it the wrong way. I just keep checking it to see where I'm at with my fabric. That feels really good. And if I flip it over, that's really good. It looks longer on this end. Down there, it was just like 1/4 of an inch. But here, when I flip it over and smooth it out, I've got 1 inch out to 1.5 inches. And we're just going to leave it right there. Everything's nice and smooth. Then I get my pins. I start in the center. I'm going to start in the center. I put this hand underneath, flat. I put this hand on top. I just smooth it out and flip it over. I take my first corsage pin, put it through, push it back through the other way, and that's it. Whatever hangs over, I'm going to leave it a hangover because I'm going to trim it off. Again, if you drop a pin, pick it up. And I'm going to continue down to the end of the quilt. As I come down, I still am using my fingers to keep my fabric taut against the canvas. All the way down. Everybody's method of connecting your backing to your canvas can be different. This way has always worked for me, and I actually enjoy it. When I'm pinning on my backing and my quilt top, I learn a lot about the backing and the quilting, or the quilt. Now I'm at the end, and I want to make sure that's hanging straight down. If you're not careful when you're pinning this on, you'll end up with a little bubble right here, and your canvas is going to be buckled. You want to keep it flat. I'm going to put another one in there because I've got about 3/4 of an inch of fabric here, and it'll pull loose if I don't. Perfect. I'm going to come back to the center and do the same thing all the way out. See how I roll my fingers? Keep it flat. Oh. See what I just did? There's maybe, I know it's hard to see, but maybe a little more than 1/8 of an inch, if that. That pin is not going to stay in your canvas or your zipper. It's going to come loose as you manipulate your quilt. So I'm going to back it out and put about 1/4 of an inch. Just likewise, I don't want to put my pin in and have that much sticking out. I want about the same amount on this end as this end. That may seem a little picky, but I'm very picky about this. Just walking it with my fingers as I go, keeping it close to the canvas. Continue down. I just pulled on my canvas because sometimes it can kind of slip. You want to keep it under control. People ask why I use zippers. I've always put zippers on my canvas leaders because teaching, I sometimes have to take things off. Occasionally I have to take something off to rip it out, which we don't like. I can take a quilt off, fold it up, and put it back on perfectly without having to repin. So I've got about 10 inches here, and I automatically went down to the end of my fabric. And then I'm going to fill in as I come back. Perfect. Now, hanging nice and flat. So we're going to go back to the front and continue rolling it on. I have about 10 inches of backing hanging over the pickup roller. I'm going to take my brake off and I'm going to reverse my canvas so it's rolling towards me. Actually, I should say I'm rolling it forward because it's releasing my backing. Keep that taut. As this drops down, you'll see it gets kind of wonky a little bit, but watch what I do. I stop rolling it and start rolling it onto my pickup roller until it's flat. Look how flat that is. Now I'm going to reverse it and roll it back to where I want it to be. Look how flat this is. I'm going to loosen that out just a little bit because it's the seam and it's built up twice as thick. But because she cut this selvage off, it is not pulling to where this is hanging and this is hanging and this is super tight. It's nice and flat the entire way. You can see here where the fabric was a little bit longer than it was on the other end. So I just take my scissors, trim it off, and I'm ready to put my quilt top on. So it gets a little bit wider right here. So I'm just going to take my shears, and just slide along, trim it off. These are Fiskars. I love these shears, using them in the shop. I have them for sale, but they're so sharp and they do such a good job. I use them for batting as well. We're ready for our quilt top. Again, it has a direction. Got some threads I'll have to clean off. I open it out and I hold the bottom of the quilt. And I just throw it all back there. Just throw it all over the take-up roller. Spread it out evenly between your backing. If they've got a lot of extra backing, width-wise, I will ask them if they want the seam in the center of the quilt or if they want to save a bigger piece of fabric when I trim it down. It doesn't matter to me. And this one is about the same on both sides. So I'm just going to center it, get it nice and flat. Again, straighten it out on the pickup roller. This fabric is so cute. It's just cows. And the pink nose. Okay, I bring my quilt top about even with my backing roller, the front edge of my backing roller. I fold it onto itself, just like this. If there's threads there I need to move, I move as many of them as I can, especially if it's going to show through. Then I take my quilt top roller and I flip it over onto my quilt top. I do not float a quilt. I want to know what's happening in my quilt. I want to have control of my quilt. If I've got fullness someplace, pinning it on will tell me that. If you are just taking it, in my opinion, if you're just taking your quilt top and laying it down at the top of your backing and hanging it down over the rail, you don't know what's happening in that quilt until you get to it, and then it might be too late. So I fold it over. If I feel like this bottom border is too big, I will lay the edge of my quilt even with the edge, or edge of my border, even with the edge of my border. I'll do the same thing on the other end. And straighten it out. This looks like it's full and it's not. It's just laying crooked. So, but let's say we do have, it's like, oh my gosh, I've got this even, or before I start it, this is hanging over 2 inches. So I know I need to pull that in. That 2 inches is in here somewhere. So I'll pin it on this edge to my canvas. I'll go down to the other, pin it on the edge of the canvas, and then I'll go to the middle and make sure I have the middle in the middle. If there's a bunch of fabric in between, you ease it in just like a sleeve. But this border is flat and perfect. I love quilting for this customer. She's just a sweetheart. She makes perfect quilts. She's 93 years old. I just love her. Okay, now I never want to set my pin bowl here or anything again on our machines. This is open. Even with our batting hanging down, it's open. I've quilted pins in there. I've quilted rulers in there. I've quilted scissors in there. One day my phone was in there. Don't lay anything here. So I just take my pins above my quilt top and I just drop some out. I don't want to reach over here and get a handful of pins and bring them over, because you can drop them and not notice them and they still get under your quilt. I start in the center. I make sure the edge of my quilt top is even with the edge of my canvas. And I'm not sure you can see this here, but where she, I want you to see this, where she seamed her back, her border, and she took it and she put a stay stitch right where that seam was so they won't pull apart. I always teach my customers, if you've got a border or a quilt that is just pieced, put a stay stitch around it. Or if you've got a border this piece, put a stay stitch around it, because it's going to pull apart. It is our job, I feel, to educate our customers that don't know how to do this. Some of them just don't care, but I tell them anyway. Okay, now I pin it on just like I did my backing. So I'm just going to run through this head to toe, well, pretty close, keeping the edge of my border even with the edge of my canvas. If you feel like you're getting off, keeping it even, just turn it over and take a peek. Going back down to the other end. Again, I'm making sure. Another thing about folding this fabric over here and putting my pins up here, when I'm finished and I pull the rest of my quilt, because remember it's tucked under about 6 inches, when I pull it out flat, if there's an extra pin tucked under here that I missed, I'll see it then. We don't want anyone curling up with a quilt and sitting on a pin. Scoop my pins down. Just listening to the hum of the trip light. Do you have a trip light on your machine? If you don't, you should. Mine has a battery backup. They aren't cheap, but they're worth it. Okay, then I take my pin bowl. I know there's pins there. Pick them up. Now I'm going to go to the back and pull my quilt back. I don't see any more pins there. Doesn't mean there isn't any. Get a hold of the quilt. Pull it straight back. I don't see any pins. I see some threads on here. When I'm rolling the quilt on, I'm watching my lines. I'm watching my seam lines on my borders. I'm watching the seam lines in my piecing, horizontally and vertically. If there's threads, I use a ton of these. If I'm using a whole one on one quilt, that doesn't make me happy, but I have. That's someone's dog in my trash can. Okay, so there's some threads. Just gonna roll them off. Release my break a little bit and then just start rolling it. Now I am using my canvas, but I'm not pushing it. I'm gripping it, rolling, letting go, grip, roll, grip, roll. Watching my seams, watching the edge of my quilt. See how I hold the edge of my fabric here, because it wants to shuffle. Just keep it even. If I run into any fullness on the edge, I leave the fullness where it lives. I'm not going to push it down here. I'm not going to push it up there. I will hold it and let it build up here. Sometimes I might have a piece of the border sticking up 2 inches. I don't care. I'll deal with that when I get there. If it's just a little bit, it usually works out anyway. Straighten it out, watching these seam lines. Watching these seam lines. This is not poofy. You don't want your quilt sandwich poofy. Sorry. Poofy, no poofy. Roll it down. Oh my goodness. Roll it down. Perfect. This little lady, she does such beautiful piecing. Look at this. The distance between my quilt top and my pins. I like to say, well, I like to do, if I put the tip of my middle finger against the tip of my zipper, I like my quilt top to come to my first knuckle. There we go. Now I just have to cut my batting and put it in there, and it'll be ready to set up to quilt. She wants white cotton batting. I carry Quilter's Dream, and I'm going to use the king size backing because her quilt is long enough that I'm afraid the 93-inch queen size might be a little short. So I lay it up across my rollers, look to see where the edge of my quilt is, and I want 4 inches or thereabouts, pretty close. Then I just unroll it down to the other end. I take my scissors, I run my hand along to find the edge of my quilt, and it's right there, but I always look to see. And if I lay my 4 fingers down here, which you can't see, I'll run it down. Okay. Keeping it as even as possible. Put my fingers here. Right there's the edge. I take my scissors, and I know that if I roll this down to where my hand is, I can put my scissors here and move my arm right along the edge of my batting. So I keep it pretty straight. So my hand is right on the edge of my batting, cutting. Make sure you don't cut your canvas. If you can't reach, go to the other side and continue. Set my batting aside. Then I take the piece and I separate it just like this. To me, all batting has a right and a wrong side. Quilter's Dream says they do not, that it's the same on both sides, but I prefer to think that they do. And in my mind, well, I know that batting is folded wrong side together, whether it's on a roll or in a package. So I just open it up. Just like this. Shake it out. And now, because the fold is out towards me here, I know that this is the outside. To me, the right side. Now, if you've got fuzz on your batting or thread on your batting, pick it off, especially if you've got fabric that's going to show through. Put those off of there. I'll trim them up as I go. I spread it out between my backing or my quilt top. I put it about even with my zipper line. And we know cotton batting is clingy, so you want to get it as straight as possible before you put it underneath. To put it underneath the quilt top, I've got it all laid out flat. Gather this up, bunch it up, push it underneath. And my brake is on, so it's not moving my quilt. Pull my quilt top back. Pull my batting up. Now it's going up a little higher. Make sure it's over this way far enough. And it's 120 inches long, so I know I've got plenty, even if it goes over top the zipper and the pins a little bit. Just like this. Smooth it out. If you have to smooth your batting out as you go, don't get it right here and grab a handful and pull it, because it's going to leave this big hand grip of batting that's stretched out. Get a hold of the bottom. I do this every time, and I'll get a big bunch in my hand. See, I've got this all bunched up, and then I can give it a little tuck without having that pucker in my batting where I grabbed it with my fingers. Because those don't come out. Get my quilt top back up. I'm going to put my clamps on my backing only. Your clamps are to support your quilt backing, not stretch it out, not on your binding, or not on your batting, and not on your quilt top, just on the edge of your backing. Put my clamp supports in. If my backing is a little short, I can move these up closer, so it will lift the edge of the binding up a little, or the border up, backing up a little bit, so it's not hitting the edge of my machine. I'll pull them down here. Again, they just go on the edge of your backing. And I will adjust them to the tautness that I want. Just like this. Now I don't pull my clamp support up here yet because I want to test my batting or test my threads before I start stitching. So I will leave that clamp support until I get my machine on my quilt. So that's how I load a quilt. It works every time. It's nice and flat. It's nice and even. I don't have to worry about it. And I know my backing is on absolutely flat and perfect.